A bill seeking to amend the 1999 Constitution, talking about the 6-year single term for governors, president, as well as chairman, have passed the first reading yesterday in the House. So we look forward to seeing how far this bill will actually go. Good morning and welcome to the Dailies, where we keep you updated with the happenings from the Nigerian newspaper. I am Sarah Elisha Dasham, and I will be doing the program alongside Rachel Tansy. Good morning.
Good morning, Sarah.
Morning. All right, we should go into the papers. Please do remember you can be part of the show by joining us through Facebook, dropping your comment, your views, and your recommendation on any of the story that is of interest to you. And looking at the Vanguard newspaper, starting with a big story, telecom sector hard hit by harsh government policies. Coming the CISO report, where we have harsh policies weakening purchasing power of telecom subscribers. Smartphone shipments shrink, and then we have operators' revenue dip. Nigerians' golden sector about to lose relevance. More detail found of that story can be found on page 5. As well, still on the paper, we're having how weak institutions aid corruption, threaten democracy, coming from Gandoji, Kuka, and Yakubu. Methodist bishop, Islamic clerics told the federal government hardship may lead to chaos and anarchy. For attacking Tinubu, APC sack Indume as the Senate chief whip. More detail can be found on page 9. Still on Vanguard newspaper, PDP governors warn against presidential interference in Edo, Ondo, Guba polls. Hit APC on state of economy. Throw weight behind new minimum wage, and Fubara. More detail found on page 2. Protests against hardship, Zulum lead security chiefs, monarch, religious leaders, and others. More detail found on page 4. And on sport, Oshime set to join PSG, agrees 24 billion naira wage package. Detail found in the paper. We have a column for Olufasan, which you can check what he is saying concerning the Supreme Court and regarding the local government autonomy. And we have the picture story here where we can see the PDP Governors Forum meeting in Enugu. We can see some of the governors that were present there, and that's all on Vanguard newspaper.
On the Matrix newspaper, Dangote refinery refuses to back down and says IOC's frustrating crude purchase with overpricing. Late Miss condemns Super Falcons to narrow defeat against Canada. More details can be found on page 16. And we have 6.2 trillion naira budget increase. National Assembly passes bill for second reading. Dixon warns legislators to avoid public ridicule in handling of legislative activities. APC making same mistake as PDP, Buhari X8 warns concerning Ndume. Senate mulls review of 2023 Finance Act to tax banks and foreign gains. More details can be found on page 3. The big story, student loan fund. At last, Tinubu launches scheme, says target is to build a fair society built on successful inclusiveness. Students starting first session to be paid next week, and this is coming from the NEL Fund boss. Over 110,000 students have successfully applied to scheme. Tinubu appoints Wilson Jack as new head of civil service. Rep senators must work part-time and minimum wage, a statement from Ajero. Peter Obi makes public wish ahead of 63rd birthday. More details can be found on page 8. And we have an entertainment, BB Niger season 9 multi-choice unveils prize money of 100 million naira. And a picture story, historic. President Bola Tinubu launches the Nigerian Education Loan Fund scheme, and one of the beneficiaries of the scheme receiving a symbolic check from the president at the council chamber of the State House in Abuja. This happened yesterday, and that's all the news on the Matrix newspaper.
On Daily Independent newspaper, Tinubu may announce new minimum wage figures today. Right Senate to increase 2024 budget by 6.2 trillion naira, adding up to our already the deficit that we are having already. Appoint new head of civil service of the Federation, detail found in the paper. Edu Guba Quadri State Shaibu as the deputy governor affirms Egodalo Apata candidacy. Edo Assembly appeals judgment on Shaibu, data found in the paper. And the big story, PDP governors back Fubara move to tackle Rivers crisis. Lament state of economy, seek credible elections. Express I state that again. Express optimism of returning to power in 2027. Support Labour's demand for enhancing minimum wage. Senate APC draws flag over Indume's removal as the chief whip. And we have News Central TV partners Nairamerit to produce market pulse. Dangote launches NUPRC over domestic crude supply obligation guidelines. Insists IOC frustrating its crude supply demands. Detail found on page 6. Tinubu ties ensuring mining license to local value addition. Northern institutions stop applications for federal government student loan facility. Government weaken adoption of 5G as 57.55% subscribers still on 2G. And here on the 63rd birthday, celebrate me by channeling resources to the poor, says Peter Obi. More detail found on page 29, and that's all on Daily Independent newspaper.
On Daily News Hub, PDP stalwart flags APC's Benin Palace demolition rumor, says it's handiwork of desperate politicians. The big story, for criticizing Tinubu, many are Indume's afflictions. The writer says sent to Senate Siberia in one fell swoop, sacked as Senate chief whip, removed as vice chair from juicy Senate Committee on Appropriation, reassigned unattractive tourism committee, advised by ruling APC to find accommodation in opposition party. My reinstatement lesson for mere mortals playing God, a statement from Shaibu. Judgment of Family Gadaro's candidacy, victory for democracy and rule of law, a statement from PDP. Tinubu appoints Esther Wilson-Jack new head of civil service. PDP governors seek political solution to Rivers crisis, back local government autonomy. Obaseki lying, pretending lacks iota of respect for Oba of Benin. This is a statement from Afebwak, accuses Edo governor of striving to diversify monarch. I regret giving Konkoso NNPC platform to contest, the statement from the party's founder. Kano governor reinstate dethroned Gaya emir, appoints new emirs for Karaye and Rano. We have son arrested for killing anti-death penalty campaigner father over monetary dispute in Edo. Why Shaibu can return as Edo deputy governor, a statement from Obaseki, as Edo Assembly appeals impeach Shaibu's reinstatement, files stay of execution. Bayelsa Varsity final year student killed, over 150 naira. And that's all the news on Daily News Hub newspaper.
A New Telegraph newspaper coming from CBN, federal government fiscal deficit widens by 10.19% to 788.64 billion naira, data found in the paper. Port Harcourt refinery takeoff threatening as vandals invade the facility. And we see IBB advocates return of religious education to public schools. Bill seeking 6 years single term for president governor skill first reading. APC leadership sack Ndume as Senate chief whip, appoint Mangonu, data found on page 2. Fuel diesel 80k landing cost hit 1,117. That must be for fuel. For diesel is 1,157. And for the 80k is 1,217. More detail found on page 8 and 25. Tinubu seeks Senate to increase 2024 budget by 6.2 trillion naira. Seek approval to tax bank. Reps okay the request past 1.9 trillion naira. And we have NDDC 2024 budget. OPS fleet over growing debt servicing, forecast subsidy payment will hit 6 trillion naira this year. Federal government needs to review its policy on borrowing. This you can find on page 2, 3, 8, 9, and 10. Castina lawmakers walk out of meeting with Governor Rada for being advised to drop their phones by security. More detail found on page 28. Education, vital tool in combating poverty. This is coming from the president. And they're not aware of 10K dollars back balance, 640K visa fee requirement for Nigerians. This is concerning the visa lift ban for those who be traveling to Dubai, that's UAE. Students avoiding hostel for fear of bandits and kidnappers. This is coming from the VC. PDP governors blame current hardship on APC mismanagement of economy, frowns at protracting minimum wage negotiation, backs Fubara in Rivers crisis. Detail found on page 3 and 5. And I think this has been the concern we've been having over the years, where we see that for every party that is on power, we see the other opposition party attacking. I think we had that during the Buhari's regime, where the PDP were on their case, and we saw where they were blaming the PDP for the reason why the country was the way it was, and they were trying to fix. And here we're seeing again, the PDP is now turning back to blame the APC. And I think I've said we need to grow beyond just pointing blame fingers and exchanging words. Rather, why don't we see a government that is ready to put hands together regardless of the party? And that is what we're talking about, inclusiveness in every way. We'll be talking about forgetting about our party and knowing the fact that this is the only country we have. So here we're seeing they're actually blaming the current hardship. I think even within the APC, there's a blame game going on. No wonder Njume has actually been sacked as a chief whip, because we will recall when he said that the president is, I think, is it too busy or it's out of reach, so ministers cannot even reach the president. That was what we had on most of the papers, and I think because of some of his statement, that was what actually warranted him to serve that punishment as being sacked as the chief whip. So I'm looking forward to a government that is ready to take criticism. I'm looking forward to a government that will say, you know what, is this what has been said about me? Why don't I sit back and look? We're seeing here, even operational private sectors are talking about our debt profile presently. So are we going to go around again and go after private sectors because they say that? You sit back and see your policies. If they are not actually giving the expected result, you go back and you can withdraw back your policy. But I think I've not seen that. Rather, we see blame. This party, the reason why the country is like this party, the reason why this, and then it keeps going back and forth like that.
Recently, Sally, I heard an interview where Rose Vivo, that is the Labour Party governorship candidate for Lagos State in the past general election that took place in 2023, said that, well, opposition's job is to, point to the gaps and the lapses of the current administration, meaning if the administration was to be under PDP, APC would be out there doing the same thing. That's just the aim. And I totally agree, because it's like you're out of the box and you have the liberty of not being in the position of taking the tough decisions, but rather being an observer. And we know that nobody does a better job than a critic, because you are not the person in that position. So you have no idea what option that administration had to pick over this and this, depending on the factors that you are not aware of. Either way, if PDP was to be the current administration, we would have APC on the bench saying this is what should be done and what is expected. What is expected of the administration in the end is to be able to have an open ear at the end of the day, to be able to listen and then to act, because certain things, it's indeed the fact and the truth. If we can remove party from governance and just take it that it is Sele that made a statement regardless of where she stands, but first of all, as a Nigerian, I think we will be more positive. The truth is, yes, you are the current administration. Your decisions are the reason we have fuel pump price at the price where it is. We have multinationals folding. We have electricity tariff gone. We have the challenge of the value of our currency. As it is your administration that made these decisions, these policies. So who are we going to point the finger at concerning the economy? It has to be you. You just have to take it whether or not you like where it's coming from, whether it's from your opposition, whether it's just from a common man. It's the reality. Your administration made these policies, and this is the toll of the policy on the economy as it is now. So yes, whether it's coming from an opposition or from within, it is the reality of our situation, and then you have to accept it. Then the question is, what are you doing about the situation? I believe this is where we see good governance. We've taken this and that policies, these decisions, but this is the output of what we have done. What is the way forward? You pick it up from there, and then you correct some of the wrongs, and then we just have to wait for some that are long term to see how it's going to be. But regardless of who it's coming from, the reality is that it is your administration that we're having this massive inflation. We cannot sugarcoat it any better than what it is.
Yes. And I just hope that they realize that it's having direct impact on Nigerians.
It is.
Regardless. So let's see what will happen. Still a New Telegraph newspaper, court reinstates Shaibu as Edo Deputy Governor, data found on page 3 and 4. Early life antibiotic exposure increased asthma risks. This is a study which you should find on page 26 for those who are fond of abusing antibiotics. So more detail of that can be found in the paper, and that's all a New Telegraph newspaper.
On Nigerian News Direct, 2024 budget, Tinubu eyes Senate approval for extra 6.2 trillion naira to tax FX gains by banks in proposed amendment to Finance Act. Details can be found on page 4. Indume backs new appointment as Akpabio reshuffles Senate standing committees. PMS landing costs. We have Mayman urges NNPC NMDPRA to embrace accountability and transparency. IOC is using trading arms to earn high profit margins from local crude buyers, Dangote alleges. Thriving Women Conference 2024, Dare to Dream, empowers women to pursue their goals. In Edo, court rules Shaibu's impeachment illegal, reinstates deputy governor. Tinubu appoints new HOS as Yemi Esan retires. You can find details on page 2, and that's all the news on Nigerian News Direct.
On the Nation newspaper, Senate replaces Indume as chief whip. 401 Osun Council caretakers members resign. Court reinstates Shaibu as Edo Deputy Governor. Judge okays Egodalo's candidacy in Edo State. Varsity students shun hostels over fear of bandit attack, says VC. Banks to pay tax on forex business gain. In the big story on the paper, Tinubu kicks off payment of 32 billion naira to students as loan. And we have other writers following that, and I hope that the money will go straight to the school rather than giving it to the students directly, because how sure are you that they will eventually go pay that money?
Yes.
So I remember you and I discussed that rather than the money going to the students directly, it should go to the school, because that is the aim of it. And so when you don't have a way of making sure that the money you give out is being accounted for, how sure are you that you'll be able to get this money back? So I'm hoping that the way this money will be given, not to the students directly, but to the institution that they will be going to. I think this is what I'm looking forward to.
So this show off by the federal government is very unnecessary. There's no need for this. It's a student loan scheme. You don't, it's not a grant. It's not some award. It's not some gift, free gift. That it's not palliative, it's not a wage award. There's no need for this. Calling us, Seller, just as you said it, we have concerns in the past and we've mentioned them. We said we need to see that this can be sustained. We need to see the right blueprint and the structure, that this student's loan is not come and go with administration, that it remains. Because when you are giving these checks to these students to show that no, we are having the NEL fund saying there's over 110,000 students that have been that have applied. How many are successful and how many have you disbursed? These are the metrics, the data, the statistics, you know. These are the kind of information we want to see, not the president shaking hands and giving in. It's not supposed to be like that. Students loan, for it to be successful, is not some hand-picked federal government show off. We don't need that. Is 110,000 have applied. We have so far 50 that have successfully received this payment into their school and tuition portal, and next session is going to begin with 50 students already benefiting from the student loan scheme. This is what we want to see, not this kind of show off. So we've stated that our concern. We just hope to see a more solid and concrete structure regarding student loan than this paparazzi kind of acts from the federal government. And I just hope that we would see better statistics in the end, not just one student receiving a handshake from the president, but that these 110,000 that have successfully applied will be beneficiaries coming in the new school session.
Honestly, because I'm really concerned a situation where the government is unable to recover back this funds that they're giving out. Why? Because they did not do all the background checks they are supposed to do. How sure are you that the people who read are actually still students? What if the person is a final year student? So many things that you need to adjust. Like you said, we need data, figures, so that we'll be able to trace it, and then we hope that other students can also benefit from it. Well, I think that's all on the Nation newspaper.
On First News newspaper, the big story in Dume's treatment. This is clearly tyranny, Nigeria descending into dictatorship, a statement from LP as reactions trailing Dume's removal as Senate Chief Whip after criticizing Tinubu. Iworiso Maxine loads Tinubu for appointing Wilson Jack as new HOS, says appointment based on merit. Tinubu launches education loan fund, target 1.2 million students. PDP governors vows to reclaim all leadership positions, back labor minimum wage demand. Northern youth students withdraw from planned nationwide protest. Tinubu asks National Assembly to increase 2024 budget from 28.7 trillion naira to 34.9 trillion naira. We have a twist. UAE denies imposing $10,000, 640,000 naira visa burden on Nigerians. Edo Assembly appeals Shaibu's reinstatement as deputy governor. I remain authentic deputy governor. Omobayo declares amid court ruling. Reps pass 1.9 trillion naira NDDC 2024 budget. Picture story where we can see the PDP governors unite for progress at Enugu State meeting. And that's all the news on First News newspaper.
On Daily Times newspaper, parliamentary coup, Senate sacking Dume as majority whip, appoint Mangono. And then we have Imo Assembly recommends sack of Chief Justice over alleged age falsification. PDP Governors Forum condemned mismanagement of economy by APC-led federation. That's the led federal government. Nobody can stop 8 years of Tinubu coming from Hope Umahi. That's talking about the immediate past governor of Iboyi State. He's stating the fact that nobody can stop 8 years of President Bola Tinubu administration. Well, that does not depend on you. That depends on how well the president can perform and if Nigerians can actually believe him to give him a second term. So I think this is a way of boasting that is not really necessary on the papers, but you can read more detail of what he have to say about that. And still on the Daily Times, the big story, Obaseki kicks as court reinstate Shaibu as Edo deputy governor. Edo Government Assembly head to the appeal court. Edo Government Assembly head to appeal court. Data found on page 2. Tinubu to African ministers of solid minerals, defend Africa, extend sustainable upliftment to our people. Order solid minerals ministry to issue mining license only if it adds value locally. Downside of the paper, NDLEA auction properties forfeited by drug cartels. Data found on page 4. We have a picture story here where we can see the Yam Festival in Taraba State. That's in northeast Nigeria. And that's all on Daily Times newspaper.
On the Guardian newspaper, Nigeria's nears 14 trillion naira deficit as Tinubu adds 6.2 trillion naira to budget. Petrol landing cost surges to 1,117 naira per litre. PDP governor slammed Tinubu over Nigeria's mismanaged economy. Shock therapy alone will not cure Nigeria's economic ills, says Financial Times. UI student protest fee electricity tariff hike blocks school entrances. Court reinstates Shaibu as Edo deputy governor. Total Energies Chapel $860 million deal pushes divestment in Nigeria to $5 billion. In Dume's demotion, Stokes warning of collapse for APC and democracy. That's all the news on the Guardian newspaper.
On the Punch newspaper, Tinubu seek extra 6 trillion naira as 2024 budget hits 34.6 trillion naira. And I actually saw this, Rich. I remember when we said that our budget will get to 30 million naira. We should just have a round figure.
Yeah.
But here we're saying that it's already 34.9%, 9 trillion naira rather. So let's see how we intend to pay our debts with all the borrowing we've been going for lately. Still on the Punch newspaper, federal government gets over $751 million World Bank loan. Federal government gets over $751 million World Bank loan. PDP governors ask federal government to fast-track minimum wage talks. You can find that on page 16. Senate sack Ndume's chief whip over anti-Tinubu comments. The big story, IOC still causing crude supply crisis. Dangote refinery cries out with the rider. IOC referring us to international trading arms for crude purchase, says Dangote refinery. Firms still pushing for dollar payment, says the CORAN. Flates middlemen for hijacking the supply. More detail of the big story can be found on page 2. Not tops applicant list as federal government disburses student loan. More detail found on page 16. Over 600,000 Nigerians sought asylum abroad under Buhari. This is a report. Over 600,000 Nigerians sought asylum abroad under Buhari. Detail found on page 12. UI student protests 10-hour electricity rationing, tuition hike. And we have 401 Osun local government caretaker escorts resign over Supreme Court judgment. More detail found on page 16. And that's all on the Punch newspaper. But before we continue further, we would love to take a time out here just to let you chew the story. What did you feel about, the borrowing spring we're going for again? As we've seen that the president is asking for an extra 6 trillion naira borrowing to make our budget for 2024 over 34 trillion naira. As well, we are seeing that concerning the 6-year single term for our governors, president, as well as our chairman, have actually passed the first reading. So we look forward to seeing what will be the next line of action, as well as we are saying that in Edo State, the court has reinstated Shaibu as the deputy governor. So more detail of other stories on the paper. We'd love you to go through it, drop your comments and your recommendation. Please stay tuned with us. We'll be right back after the break.
Make your everyday informative, make your everyday count. Know your world, daily affairs, national and international, with authentic news events as they unfold on Global News and Zoom on Nigeria, Monday to Friday at 1 p.m.
Welcome back. It's still the Dailies. We have been looking at a number of stories on the paper, looking at what's happening in Edo State, as well as we're seeing that concerning the minimum wage, where we're seeing that the PDP governors are really ready and they are telling the president to, take the next line of action. Everybody's fingers is crossed concerning what will be the discussion today between Labour and the president. So we're hoping that the new minimum wage will be out today. I thank you for staying. We still have Rachel with us. Thank you so much, Rachel.
You're welcome, Steady.
All right, let's continue with the paper review, and Rachel will take us through the next paper.
On Nigerian Tribune, days after criticizing Tinubu's Senate sacks Ndume as chief whip, the writer says replaces him with Mongunu. APC says Ndume free to resign from party. Akpabio reshuffles Senate committee, moves him from Appropriation Committee deputy chairman to Tourism Committee chairman. More details can be found on page 3. Court reinstates Shaibu as Edo Deputy Governor. Assembly appeals seeks stay of execution. Omobayo remains Deputy Governor, Edo government says. Labour's demand for new national minimum wage justified. Statement from PDP governors back Fubara on river crisis. One on local government autonomy implementation. Wilson Jack is new head of service of the Federation. Court dismisses suit seeking Igadalu's removal. Adeleke promises to fast-track actions on students' welfare. Reps receive bill seeking 6-year single term for president and others. Ogun renames 5.7-kilometer Kenta Idi Aba Road after Wole Soyinka. While local oil price will continue to increase, a statement from Dangote, the writer under the story, says commends NUPRC for publishing domestic crude supply obligation guideline. More details can be found on page 6. Tinubu writes National Assembly moves to increase 2024 budget to 33.7 trillion naira. Requests National Assembly approval for additional 6.2 trillion naira. 6th Amendment of Financial Act to impose tax on banks' forex windfall. House approves 1.912 trillion naira NDDC budget. That's all the news on Nigerian Tribune.
On Daily Sun newspaper, IPOB demands unconditional release of Kanu on held ground, detailed on page 5. PDP governor chid APC on state of economy, throw weight behind Rivers Governor Fubara. Senate excess Ndume removes Borno senator as chief whip but fails to suspend him. VP man emerges the new whip. Gunmen abduct 11 passengers on Enugu-Abakaliki Expressway. More detail on page 28. Edo government files appeal as court reinstates Shaibu as the deputy governor. Says Omobayo remains Obaseki's deputy. Appeal court affirms Godalo as PDP Guba candidate. Alleged $6 billion fraud, court declines Aguloye's request to seek medical treatment abroad. President should come up with national minimum wage coming from Labour. Wilson Jack emerges the new head of civil service of the Federation. Tinubu moves to raise 2024 budget by 6.2 trillion naira, seek amendment of Finance Act to impose one-time windfall tax on banks and FX gain. We have new central partner with Nairametrics to produce market pulse, detailed on page 24. And we have a picture story where we can see the Nigeria Exchange Group, Temi Popola. Then we have the managing director, New Central TV, Kayode Akitemi, and then the CEO, Nairametric Ogude Obichukuka, as a partnership conversation between New Central TV, NGX as well. And that's all on Daily Sun newspaper.
On Leadership newspaper, Didi Wilson Jack appointed new head of service. Mongino replaces Ndume as Senate Majority Whip. Tinubu asks National Assembly to increase 2024 budget by 6.2 trillion naira. In Edo, court affirms Ighodalo as PDP candidate, nullifies Shaibu's impeachment. The big story on the paper, PDP governors decry minimum wage delay, welcome Supreme Court ruling on LG autonomy, suggests political solution to river crisis, court bars PDP from conducting congresses in rivers. Details can be found on page 4. UAE Embassy mom as uncertainty trails visa fee hike. Northern varsities more proactive in loan scheme, report from Nelfon. Kano government revokes lands allotted by Ganduje. Details can be found on page 17. NACAN chairman explains 90 billion naira subsidy for 2024 Hajj. That's all the news on Leadership newspaper.
On Blueprint newspaper, Edo Council chair impeach over 1.7 billion naira budget pardoning. And then we have as well Tinubu's 6.2 trillion naira budget increase receives National Assembly approval. That's on business. As well, we see Nigeria invested over $2 billion in renewable energy coming from Tinubu, once mining license tied to local value addition. Court reinstate Shaibu as Edo Deputy Governor, State Assembly appeals. For the second time in 7 years, Ndume incurs Senate rod. Sack as the chief whip, Mangono steps in. He's free to join PDP or any opposition coming from the APC. Group backs and battle lawmaker. More detail found on the front page and on page 8. And then I'm talking about building collapse. Lagos, 3 others lead as Nigeria record 418 deaths. And then on Kano State, Yusuf returned Gaya Emir, appoint 2 other second-class monarchs. Flood, petrol shortage, orders to fuel inflation in July coming from Rwani. Zamfara recruit 2,000 teachers to enhance science, technical education. You can find that on page 9. And that's all on Blueprint newspaper.
On Voice of Liberty, Tinubu appoints new head of service. APC destroyed Nigerian economy, all institutions built in 16 years, coming from the PDP governors. NEF condemns eviction order against northerners in Delta. The big story, Tinubu requests Senate to increase 2024 budget by 6.2 trillion naira, amends 2023 Finance Act. Senate removes Ndume as chief whip for criticizing Tinubu. On economic hardship, SDP endorses nationwide protest, urges citizen security agencies to be civil. Ohaneze directs Igbos not to participate in nationwide protest. Northern Youth Student Coalition urges members to shun planned protest, says motives unknown. And that's all the news on Voice of Liberty.
I like the way everybody's calling together their own region not to get involved in the protests. And we know here, according to the Northern Youth, the motive is unknown. So why get involved in the protest you really do not know about? And in as much as we have been preaching peace and we've been saying that things need to be done right, but I remember the real aim for the protest was because of the hardship in the country. And that was why we saw people were saying there is going to be a protest. But regardless whether a protest should hold or not, I hope the government really understand that a lot of things are happening. There's hunger in the land. Some of your policies is not favorable to people. In case you do not know, people are dying every day. If people are not dying of hunger, people are dying because they cannot access health facility. So a number of things are happening, and I hope the government is aware of this. So just in case you do not know what is happening in the country, we're here to let you know that this is what is really happening. And we hope the government will do something to really address all of these things that are happening. Hunger, palliative, I do not know. They say palliative has actually reached every state, but I'm yet to see the palliative here. But I'm hoping, honestly, that the government will wake up and address all of these needs that Nigerians need.
So in my opinion, the Northern Student Coalition just want to chicken out of the protest, which is fine. But your reason as saying that motive is unknown doesn't make any sense. Everybody from the on-go knows that the reason behind the protest is hardship. We all know what everybody has been talking about, this administration, policy, bad governance, hardship, cost of living and all of that. The motives are out there plain and clear. If you want to back out from a protest, fine, it's okay. But saying that the motive behind the protest is unknown just sounds kind of, it looks like it just doesn't make sense on a lot of level. I believe if Ohaneze Igbo will come out and say, okay, let's not go out, we understand that their region face a particular issue. They are kind of walking on eggshells now as it is, looking at the IPOB, the Nnamdi Kanu's case, the release. They have to prioritize their situation, which should we focus on now as it is. It's understood, but when we come to the North, the students, the coalition and all of that, you can't come out and say there is no motive. You don't understand the motive, because the motive is clear out there. If you are taking on the street today, what it is, hardship, the price, the cost of living, what is the government doing? You're not seeing them taking any drastic step. Even a layman knows exactly what the reason behind the protest is. What is NLC fighting? What is GUC talking about? What is organized labor all together out there talking about? What is the complaint? Why do we have Ndume being removed as a chief, criticizing an administration? The reason
numerous actually.
Are numerous, and one is all geared towards hardship and the current situation, economic situation of the country that is very, very obvious. But it's okay if you don't want to be a part of the protest. You have that liberty to back out, but do not come and try to dump in the motive of a protest that the voice have been one thing all this while.
Of course. But let's take a look at another paper, which is this day newspaper. Total Energies EP agrees to sell 10% stake in oil gas asset to Chapal for $860 million. We have French oil giant confirms the deal, announces retention of interest in gas supply to the NLNG. Financial Times to Tinubu, shock therapy alone won't cure Nigerians' economic ills. Still on this day newspaper, PDP governors. Tinubu has failed in governance, impoverishing Nigerians, worsening the economy. Vows to reclaim nation leadership decry craft into anarchy. One INEC against bias in off-season elections, says APC mismanaging country's economy. Demand inclusive Congress's support, minimum wage, local government autonomy, and also the issue of FUBARA. National Assembly okays Tinubu fresh request for 6.2 trillion naira injection into 27.5 trillion naira 2024 budget. Review 2023 Finance Act to tax banks FX gain. And we have Baru hits amendment meant to accommodate new minimum wage. And then Edu is saying federal government to reintroduce breveage tax. Detail found on page 9. We have the picture story here where we can see the PDP governors forum meeting, where we can see some of the governors present. There we have Mutfwang there, governor of Plateau State as well. We have Governor Obaseki of Edo State. We also have Fubara of Rivers State. We can also see the governor of Enugu as well, their Governor Imba, and many others present during the forum meeting. And that's all on this day newspaper.
On Sporting Sun newspaper, the big story of Siemens set to join PSG on 24 billion naira wage. Refuses to train with Napoli teammate to hit Paris today. Inter Miami delivers damning Messi injury update. Al Nassr pulls out of Edison race. Yamal shuns Messi number 10 shirt. Details can be found at the back page. Lenny Euro to become 5th most expensive teenager ever. Arteta includes Nketiah in preseason tour of the US. Man City keen on £100 million. Joe Neves, you can find details inside the paper. Lyon to send gift Auburn on loan to Botafogo. More details can be found on page 6. Wabli returns to training at Chippa United. On Olympics, reps donate 100 million naira to Nigerian contingent. More details can be found on page 7. Anthony Joshua versus the boys verbal warfare takes fresh tweets over drug testing. Details can be found at the back page. Haaland drops Real Madrid bombshell, wants to move up with Mbappe. Real Madrid is set to pocket around 500,000 euros from Morata's transfer. Greenwood flying out to Marseille for medical. And that's all the news on Sporting Sun newspaper.
On Business Day newspaper, Nigerian forex inflows surged 57% as Naira shows stability. Inflow via CBN up 127.97% in 1 month. FX overturn rises by 180.47% in 1 year. Air Peace, Ibom Air, United Nigeria, Max Air and others say not backlisted by Lesser. Overland Airways says own all its aircraft. NNPC operations interrogating opacity, tax and other matters. Dangote Refinery accuses IOCs of price gouging. Faces behind Chapa, new owners of Total Energies, $860 million assets data fund in the paper, and that's all on Business Day newspaper.
On Punch Sport Extra, dancing to Paris, can African champions the Tigers break 20-year winless Olympics jinx? A question we might have to wait for the Olympics to find answers. PSG in advance of Osimhen talks. Villa giving Nanucho transfer green light. Wobbly returns to cheaper training. United beat Madrid to Euro signing. More details can be found on page 4. We have Usman keen on UFC return. I didn't enjoy watching Eagles at AFCON coming from Osaze. More details can be found on page 7. Barker agreed personal terms with Williams. Akpom unsure of Ajax future. Arsenal ponder Watkins move. More details can be found on page 4. On cricket, Kenya edged Nigeria 3-2 in bilateral series. US-based boxer Wokolo eyes title fight in Lagos. On Paris 2024, Falcons land in France today. And that's all the news on Punch Sport Extra.
Well, that's how far we can go on the program this morning. Thank you, Rachel, for doing this.
Always a pleasure, Sally.
Thank you as well to our viewers. Thank you to the supporters. And thank you to our crew and every other person that made this program a success. We look forward again to the end of tomorrow. Do have a great day ahead.